I don't think Democrats have a strong message or even strong candidates in many places. It's what's going on within the Republican Party and how Republicans, especially Republican women, feel about the party at this moment.
You acknowledge that this race was unique in the sense that it had to do a lot with these allegations. It didn't have to do with the Trump agenda. If you put the Trump agenda up in an election in Alabama, it would be an overwhelming win.
But here's the thing. So if Trump backed Luther Strange should have won over Roy Moore. Instead, Steve Bannon backed Roy Moore, and Roy Moore beat the Trump candidate. Then Steve Bannon's calling the Oval Office and saying to the president, you made a mistake. Jared Kushner misled you. You should be backing Roy Moore. He's the populist, and you're a populist president. This is, to quote Martha, the guy who's going to discombobulate, shake up the establishment. And look what happened tonight.
It's going to be interesting to see the fallout here, and we're going to toss it back to Laura. But, Laura, to your point on your angle, I think that this is going to embolden Democrats to use this issue specifically against this president. And you're already seeing it, as you predicted last week, but it's only intensifying in recent days.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the panel about this, Brett. Maybe Brit Hume can weigh in on this. If they're able to take out a Senate candidate in Alabama with these allegations, as lurid as they were, what does this mean for the umpteen number of Democrats who will inevitably come forward to urge the president to resign? The constant re-airing of the old allegations that were aired last October 2016, and putting this pressure, Britt, all the way to 2018 midterm elections, the war on woman redux. I think we see this all the way through 2018.
Well, we may, Laura, but there's one thing that is clear here, and that is that whether you believe the women or not, nothing new really has emerged about Donald Trump. What we're hearing is a re-airing of allegations that were made before the election. And the voters had a chance to judge them and judge him accordingly. And they decided, whether you like it or not, that he should be the president. So it's, one thing that a news story like this requires is news. And endless repetition of the same old charges, I don't think really moves the ball very much. And I'm not sure how long this latest spate of repeated accusations can last. Now, I could be wrong about this, but my sense about this is that absent something new and something more recent, these are likely to die down.
And Chris Wallace, we have the ongoing Mueller investigation at the same time. The other, cudgel to hit this president with as time goes on in the next year may wrap up soon, may go on another couple of years. We don't know. But that's the other boiling point here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I want to go back to something, though, that Dana said, Laura, and that is that the map, and just in terms of the schedule, because 2018, it's all the people who won in 2012 when Obama was reelected. Democrats have to defend 25 seats. Republicans only have to defend 10 seats. So the Republicans are going to be playing offense. Democrats are going to be playing defense. And, I find it hard to think that somebody is going to lose in a state, a Republican candidate who's got no charges of sexual harassment against him, or, frankly, anything to do with the Russian collusion because of people's feelings about Trump. That maybe on the issues they might vote against him, but if you're running in, as a Republican incumbent in some state, in a red state this time, I find it hard to think that if you don't have that, we had a perfect storm in Alabama. Yes, there were allegations against Donald Trump, but there were also very serious, new, fresh allegations against Roy Moore. If you don't have that kind of baggage, and you certainly aren't going to have any baggage in terms of Russian collusion, I just don't know how that carries over into Senate races.
And Dana, on the issue of substance that Juan brought up, saying that this is a kind of a referendum on Trumpism, like I would take issue with that, obviously in Alabama, as Brett said. But, going forward with the immigration, trade deals, deregulatory efforts, judges, where does this leave the Republican Party when you have a Flake, Murkowski, Collins, and McCain, who are obviously on many issues really on the opposite side of Donald Trump?
Well, I think in many ways, actually, the president's in pretty good shape on that, as Brett has been saying all night. That the tax reform bill is going to get voted on, most likely, before Jones has ever sat. And I'm not convinced that he wouldn't have voted for it anyway. But let's say they get tax reform done. Then the president has said he wants to move on and do border security, immigration, and an infrastructure bill. The Democrats want to work on an infrastructure bill. There's nothing here that would change the path of judges. And on trade, I think that the president actually can do a lot just administratively. So actually, the president has, I think, a decent case to make that the end of his first year, he's accomplished a lot. The people feel good about the economy. The consumer confidence is high. Stock market is high. Unemployment is low. Everything is sort of going his way economically. So I think that it's very hard to disrupt that right now. And if, the Democrats, they're going to have to defend all of those seats that Chris Wallace was talking about. They might be able to pick up a couple of places. I think the thing to really think about is the candidate recruitment. In some of these places, talking about the House side for a second, you have up to 17, 18, 19 people running in some of these Democratic primaries. That's going to pull a lot of those Democrats way to the left. But we saw in the presidential election in 2016, that's not where the country is. I think Alabama is definitely just an outlier. Do you think voter patterns are interesting to maybe compare to Virginia governor's race? But ultimately, Roy Moore, this is an allegations that he could not overcome. This is specific to him. Yeah. He's the one who lost the race.
And Juan, remember that first interview he did with Sean Hannity? That has to have been one of the worst interviews. We were on radio and TV that day, like, oh my gosh, like he's further incriminated himself. Remember he said, well, I always ask the mother's permission whether to date the young girl. Well, I don't know what he called it. But
he said not generally. Generally, I don't date teenagers.
That was a terrible answer. He did not. That began, I think, his downfall gradually. That interview was terrible for him.
Well, it was. In fact, I thought he made a comeback from it. I mean, at certain points, it looked like, that people were putting it in the past. And then the context here is important because you had the Harvey Weinstein stuff, but then it really accelerated and you had Democrats and a lot of the Hollywood elites get involved. And it was easy to play into a narrative that said, we in Alabama, one, don't believe the elitist Washington Post and all the Washington establishment that's out to tell us what to do and looks down on us. But Roy Moore, it seems to me, never was able to stir the idea of a big turnout among the voters he needed to win tonight. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk about this turnout issue because if you look at the numbers, it comes back about, 25% of Alabama voters, of the electorate, turned out for this very high-profile, much-attention special election. And guess what? About 28% of the state's voters are African Americans, mostly in the southern tier. But you're going to see an increased turnout there. This takes me back again to the whole notion of what do Democrats see tonight? Do they have hope, or do they see this as just peculiar and based on Roy Moore and based on the charges against him of sexual improprieties? And what I'm seeing right now is that people are saying, well, look at Virginia. Look at what happened there.
It's a totally different state, Juan.
It's a totally different state. But look, Laura, at exactly where you saw increases in turnout and where you saw people stay home, or you saw in Virginia having to run on the immigration issue, and did it...
Wait, but here's the problem. Gillespie is a Bush Republican who late in the game tried to move to Trump's position. That wasn't believable from the outset. He's a Bush Republican.
You a Virginian, nice guy, but I'm going to tell you,
that wasn't going to work.
But he tried to play populist Republican Party politics.
It
wasn't him. I think he is a Bush Republican, but he tried to be a Trump Republican.
Yeah, but he was from New Jersey. I mean, that whole thing didn't work.
You're a tough customer,
Two different states. We got red Alabama and we got basically blue Virginia. It's changed demographically. Immigration, the Beltway is all big government. Voters, they want bigger and bigger government. So I think that comparison is a little wobbly. Yep. But great analysis from the panel. Brett, Martha, thank you so much. Let's get to Fox's Doug McKelway, who's in Birmingham, with supporters of Democrat Doug Jones. And Peter Doocy's in Montgomery with Republican Roy Moore's campaign. Doug, let's first start with you. Tell us what you know there.
Well, this is as excited a crowd as I have seen in a long time when the projection was announced here. And by the way, I should say this is, as you know, a totally overwhelmingly Democratic crowd. So both of the giant monitors in this room are tuned to CNN. Their projection of victory for Doug Jones came about 10 minutes after Fox News' projection. So they were unaware of the Fox News projection when it happened on CNN. A thunderous round, a brilliant crowd here, people hugging each other, kissing each other, toasting each other, chugging beers and chugging champagne, and it continues to this point. We don't know when Doug Jones is going to make an appearance here. But at this time, I am reminded of the words as well of Mitch McConnell some weeks ago, who said that we've tried the ultra-conservative candidates in the past. He made mention of the 2010 Tea Party candidates Sharon Angle in Nevada and Christine O'Donnell in Delaware, who were not ready for prime time. They proved that, and that may as well be the case here with Judge Moore as well. Him coming out on that horse today to go vote reminded me of the fact that Alabama is not the perceived backwater that so many of the coastal elites say it is. This is a state which has been progressively moving forward. It is home to the Marshall Space Flight Center. 4 or 5 international automobile manufacturers have made their homes in Alabama. A lot of high-tech manufacturing going on here. People here want to move forward, and they didn't sense that in the Judge Moore campaign. They did sense it in the Doug Jones campaign. And he is every bit as much the law and order kind of a candidate as Judge Moore was, although with more bona fides, you might say. He was born and raised in the state. His father was a steel worker at the U.S. Steel plant here in Birmingham, U.S. attorney, served Senator Heflin Howe, and many other credentials, perhaps most importantly in terms of his appeal to African-American voters. He tried 2 Ku Klux Klansmen who were responsible 3 decades ago for the bombing of the Baptist church here in Birmingham, which resulted in the deaths of 4 little African-American girls. So this is, bottom line, a really, really excited crowd. We don't know when Doug Jones is going to come out, but I suspect that the applause round will be as thunderous as any we've heard tonight when he does.
All right,
Back
Doug.
to you, Laura.
Let's go to Peter Ducey, who's in Montgomery, a much more somber crowd. Peter, we're reminded, a friend of mine who's in Birmingham just messaged me and said, remember that Roy Moore ran twice for governor and lost. And, you know, this is not Mitch McConnell's fault, he said. You know, Moore would have had a hard time winning the nomination in a full primary. We forget all those facts, but there you have it.
But this is not over here at the Moore campaign election night headquarters, Laura. Something extraordinary happened about 2 minutes before you guys came to me. An MC went up to the stage and said to a very somber crowd, I know that some of the networks have started to call the race for Doug Jones, but we are not ready to call it. And the MC then left the stage. They're playing some poppy music right now, trying to get the crowd going. You can see they've still got the New York Times projection that shows the red county and the blue counties. That went away for a little while because they switched over to the local news that still hadn't called it. But as soon as the race was called, the local affiliate took a shot of Jones headquarters, where people were standing behind Doug McElway, celebrating, cheering, drinking beer, and that quickly was taken off of the screen. It is a much different scene here right now. There was a lot of confidence at the beginning of the night. They were calling it the mix and mingle time before Roy Moore got here. But a lot of folks have left. Some who were standing are now sitting. Still haven't seen Roy Moore on the stage, but he is on the premises, and we do expect at some point, if they do concede, which all the networks say at some point is going to be the result, including Fox, we expect to see a big finger pointed at Mitch McConnell. My understanding, talking to folks here and talking to the folks who really, really were trying to help Roy Moore win, if he won, it was going to be thanks to President Trump and all of his support. There was the rally in Pensacola nearby. There was the robocall that was out and even was turned into a radio ad that we heard driving from Birmingham to Montgomery today. But that if Moore lost, it would be squarely McConnell's fault. And so at some point, again, no update on the timing, whether we're going to hear from Moore soon or any of his surrogates soon, but we do expect a singular focus, at least based on what we were hearing before the election was called. They are really mad at the establishment, as they have been, especially Mitch McConnell, and they think that this is his fault.
Peter, my same source in Alabama says Jones is a lame duck from day one. He has zero chance of winning in 2020. This state loves Trump. This is not an anti-Trump result. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Pete, go ahead, Peter.
What's interesting, the NRSC chairman, Cory Gardner, is already saying that he hopes that Doug Jones will do the right thing and just start voting with the Republicans in the Senate. We have no indication that would actually happen, but he's trying. Laura.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, Peter, thanks so much. And Fox News has obtained the anti-Trump texts by Peter Strzok that led to his ouster from the Bob Mueller special counsel team. Two heavy hitters weigh in on that. We're going to talk to Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr. Stay with us. And Trump outside counsel Jay Sekulow tells Fox News a new separate special prosecutor should be appointed to look into all of it. And tonight, Fox News has obtained the anti-Trump texts. Ooh, these are fun. By FBI agent Peter Strzok that led ultimately to his removal from Bob Mueller's special counsel team. One of them, written on March 4th, 2016, is between Strzok and his gal pal back then, Lisa Page. Strzok texts, quote, "Would he be a worse president than Cruz?" This is how liberals text to each other. It's hilarious. Page responds, "Trump? Yes, I think so." Strzok replies, "I'm not sure. OMG, my God, he's an idiot." Joining us now with reaction is Harvard Law School professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz. We just call you Dersh, by the way, Professor. But is that okay? That's like your nickname. That's our production nickname.
My students have called me that. My students have called me that for years.
We're just copying the students then. You're the author of the new book, Trumped Up, How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. He joins us from San Francisco and in Dallas, the man who investigated President Bill Clinton, former independent counsel and judge and SG, Ken Starr. Let's start with you, Judge Starr. We're going to get into these texts in just a moment, but a quick reaction from both of you from what we saw tonight in Alabama. It looks like a 0.1% victory, but nonetheless a victory for a Democrat, Doug Jones. Judge Starr, is this a rejection, a repudiation in any way of the Trump agenda, or is this sui generis, to keep it in the legalistic terms?
I love that. Sui generis, exactly. It is a one-off. All politics are local, but this was especially a local election, just given the issues that popped up. So, yes, it's a one-time election, and I love the suggestion that the senator-elect, if he holds on to the victory, we heard that report, is already a lame duck. Look, Alabama is a heavily Republican state, and Judge Moore was just viewed, obviously, as a severely flawed candidate. And look at the turnout. The turnout was suppressed.
Let's go to Professor Dershowitz on this. Professor, people were saying it was impossible for a Democrat to win. These allegations were raised against, of course, Roy Moore. He didn't really have a great refutation in the one major interview he did with Sean Hannity. Then you had Richard Shelby, the respected Republican mainstream senator, come out yesterday hitting Moore. Friends of mine in Alabama said that did a lot to suppress voter turnout in the Republican Party for Moore, and a lot of people just stayed home.
Well, this was not a win for the Democrats. It was a loss for Judge Moore. It was very, very personal. It was a referendum on Harvey Weinstein, on all the allegations that are now swirling around so many people in the world, and Moore could not survive the accusations that were leveled against him. This tells us nothing that would allow us to predict how other elections in other states will go. It is a completely one-off. I completely agree with my friend Ken Starr on this one.
All right, we're going to hear from Doug Jones in just a moment, and we're going to have to go to that when he speaks. But let's go to you, Judge Starr, on these texts from Peter Strzok. Do they change your mind about the special counsel's investigation, Mueller's team? More tainted after reading these or less?
Of course. It's outrageous. And it really does go to Bob Mueller's judgment. You need to assemble a team when you're talking about investigating the President of the United States that really is above reproach. These folks have their First Amendment rights, so let them say what they want to say. But right. I'm deeply
Judge, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have to go right to Doug Jones in Alabama, his victory speech. Pardon the interruption. Let's listen.
I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say. if you will indulge me just a moment. Well, no. Well, let's just get sworn in first before we. Folks, I'm overwhelmed, but I want to let me first make a couple of kind of brief comments. You know, I have said throughout this campaign that I thought that December 12th was going to be a historic day. But I got to tell you, and you know where I'm headed, December 12th has always been a historic day for the Jones family. This is, as you know, mine and Louise's 25th wedding anniversary. My running mate, my partner. I could not have done this without her. The love, support, the encouragement. Earlier in the evening when she just kind of kicked me in the rear end when I was down. So this has been a wonderful night. I've got to thank my family. I've got my wonderful sons, Carson, Christopher, my daughter, Courtney, my beautiful granddaughter, her son-in-law, Rip, all these friends back here, U.S. attorney buddies, my mom who can make it here. My dad, who's here with us in spirit, who's too ill, and unfortunately my sister, Terry, and her husband, Scott, Terry Savage and Scott Savage. Hey, girls, thank you, thank you. She couldn't make it either. I am truly overwhelmed. I am truly, truly overwhelmed. But you know, folks, and you have all heard me say this at one point or another in this campaign, I have always believed that the people of Alabama had more in common than divide us. We have shown not just around the state of Alabama, but we have shown the country the way that we can be unified. We have spent so many hours. I have got so many people that I can thank, but I will tell you just very quickly. There are 3 people that I want to acknowledge tonight, because if it wasn't for them, we would not be here. They're the folks that sat me down in early May and said, Doug, you can do this, and they showed me the way. And I want to make sure that everyone in this room, and we had an incredible staff. It started with a small group of folks, Jess and Wade and Trey and Garrett. But the 3 people I need to acknowledge before I go any further. I have the greatest political consultant in the world in Joe Trippi. I know you're tired of seeing my ads, but they were all Joe's work, and he showed me the way. Doug Turner, who've been friends for so long, showed me the numbers. And then the one that I call the Yoda of the campaign, Giles Perkins. Giles has had his own issues to deal with.
This is a Fox News alert. We want to take you back live to Alabama, where Democrat Doug Jones is celebrating his victory, having been just elected to the U.S. Senate. Let's listen in. All right, we are going to work on that audio. Just stick with us a minute. He pulled off a race that just weeks ago many would have thought impossible. That was before allegations against Roy Moore, dating back decades in some cases, surfaced. And voters we saw today were really conflicted over whether or not they believed those allegations. We had a big number of voters actually tell us in our voter analysis that they stayed home because of the allegations. They chose not to vote at all. And you would think tonight that had to have helped Democrat Doug Jones. He is going through thanking his supporters and vowing to take Washington by storm. Let's listen in.
That's the volunteers who made 1.2 million phone calls around the state. It's those volunteers to make sure that we knew. It was every community. You know, I keep hearing about the different communities in this state. The African American community, thank you. My friends in the Latino community, thank you. To all my Jewish friends, happy Hanukkah. We have built this everywhere we have gone. We have had that same energy. We've had that same excitement. At the end of the day, this entire race has been about dignity and respect. This campaign has been about the rule of law. This campaign has been about common courtesy and decency and making sure everyone in this state, regardless of which zip code you live in, is going to get a fair shake in life. And let me just say this, folks, to all of my future colleagues in Washington, to all. I've had such wonderful help, but I want to make sure, in all seriousness, there are important issues facing this country. There are important issues of health care and jobs and the economy, and I would like, as everyone in the entire probably free world knows right now, we've tried to make sure that this campaign was about finding common ground and reaching across and actually getting things done for the people. So I have a challenge. I have this challenge to my future colleagues in Washington. Don't wait on me. Take this election from the great state of Alabama. Let me finish. Take this election where the people of Alabama said, we want to get something done. We want you to find common ground. We want you to talk. Take this opportunity in light of this election and go ahead and fund that SHIP program before I get up there. Put it aside and let's do it for those million kids and 150,000 here in Birmingham, Alabama. I am not going to talk too much longer. It's been a long night. It's been a long campaign. But let me just say, I know I've forgotten so much. I've forgotten so much. There's so many thank yous and how we feel. This vote, I've said it before. Alabama has been at a crossroads. We have been at crossroads in the past, and unfortunately, we have usually taken the wrong fork. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, you took the right road. That's exactly USA. On a very personal level, let me tell you, and I said this at the top, and I do mean this. It seems, I want to thank each of you for helping me fulfill a lifelong dream of serving in the United States Senate that started out with my mentor, Howell Heflin, and ever since then, that has been my dream. Thank you for that. At the end of it, so as we approach this history, as we approach this crossroads, we have work to do. We have work to do in this state. to build those bridges within this state, to reach across with those that didn't vote for us, to try to find that common ground. I'm pledging to do that tonight, but I will tell you, tonight is a night for rejoicing, because as Dr. King said, as Dr. King liked to quote, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, tonight in this time, in this place, you helped bend that moral arc a little closer to that justice, and you did it. That moral arc, not only was it bent more, not only was its aim truer, but you sent it right through the heart of the great state of Alabama in doing so. Thank you all. I love you. Thank you, and God bless you. And God bless the great state of Alabama and the United States of America. Thank you all.
All right, you've been listening to Democrat Doug Jones in Alabama, successfully pulling off a run for the U.S. Senate. He will be the next senator to join here in Washington with a lot on the plate for the GOP in 2018. How much will it cost them in losing that seat? First of all, let's talk before we hear from Roy Moore. We expect we will hear from him eventually, from Alabama's Secretary of State John Merrill. Let's talk about his reaction. Secretary, great to have you with us tonight. What can you tell us about turnout? Because we thought that was going to be